Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another of my Star Trek reviews, and today's review is for 1989's Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Now this was directed by William Shatner and it was from an original idea by William Shatner as well, the story. And this is my least favourite Star Trek film. We'll get that out of the way straight away. It's most people's least favourite Star Trek film as well, so that in no way makes me unique. I have spoken on my previous film reviews about my love for Star Trek and how I grew up with Star Trek, and my memories of watching the Star Trek films with my dad, who has passed away in the early 90s. This was the last Star Trek film that my dad got to see. I don't recall him ever getting the chance to see The Undiscovered Country, because he died in 91. And I think that came out in 91, but it was later in the year. So I know that he was disappointed with this film, as many people were. And this film focuses on, obviously, the crew of the Enterprise again, and they essentially have to deal with a rebel Vulcan called Cybok, I believe he's called, who essentially hijacks the Enterprise and takes the Enterprise crew on a journey to the centre of the galaxy, Shakari, which essentially is supposedly where God resides. And he's got this power where he can control people by making them confront their biggest fears, and once they've done that, they release their inner fears, and then they will do everything that he asks them. So he kind of brainwashes people, essentially, this character. And he is Spock's half-brother, as it is revealed in the film. So that's essentially what this story focuses on. Now, I don't think this film is all bad. I mean, I will get this out there. I mean, there are aspects of this film that really don't work. I mean, apparently the story was going to be a lot darker, and it was kind of turned into this, what it became. A lot of things went against this film, I think. I think the studio interference probably ruined parts of it. They just wanted a family-friendly adventure, and I think William Shatner initially wanted something a little bit deeper and darker. Industrial Light and Magic, who had done the effects for the previous 3 Star Trek films, were not available this time, because they were doing effects for Indiana Jones, Last Crusade and Ghostbusters 2, I believe. So they weren't available to do the effects for this film, and it really shows. I think the effects for this Star Trek film are arguably the worst. I mean, the effects in Star Trek in 1979 are considerably better than what we get in this film, and that was a decade previous. So I think it's a real step back in regards to the effects. Breaks the immersion quite a lot, the effects. Some of the characters are very weak. You've got this Cybok character, and actually the actor that plays Cybok does a really quite a good job. I don't really have a problem with his performance, but just to be thrust upon though it's Spock's half brother was lazy writing. You get these characters from this peaceful planet, so you get an Earth representative, a Romulan and a Vulcan, and David Warner's one of those actors. Weak characters with nothing to do. You get a Klingon character in this film who is, he's got delusions of grandeur. He wants to be this wonderful, honourable warrior, so he wants to take out the Enterprise and Kirk. And probably the worst Klingon in a Star Trek film. Maybe there's a debate to be had there, but again, terrible. A terrible Klingon. So there's so much here that just doesn't work for this film, and really hampers it. But there are some good things too. The interactions between Kirk, McCoy and Spock are all golden as usual, especially at the beginning of the film when they're out on leave and they're camping. And the scene with Kirk climbing the mountain, Spock interfering was great, apart from the bit when he falls off, which is terrible effects. But the bit when they're around the campfire, a bit of banter and making fun of each other and have a little sing along, it was really, really nice. And there's other moments in the film. The interactions with the crew were really nice. I thought the scenes they did when Cyborg made McCoy and Spock confront their fears was well done. I thought the acting, especially from DeForest Kelley as McCoy, was brilliant. I thought he was really, really good in those scenes. So there are some key scenes and moments in this film that are classic Star Trek that do really, really work, that save this film from, I think, from being a complete and utter disaster. Because I do remember watching this when I was young, and I know my dad didn't like it, even though he didn't slam it or anything, because he was so affectionate towards Star Trek as a franchise. I remember watching it, and when this came out I would have been, 16, 15 years old, something like that, and I remember being disappointed watching it, this whole God storyline and how ridiculous it seemed, and I just thought it was a really odd idea, especially because they'd finished that trilogy of movies, Star Trek 2, 3 and 4, which essentially that's a trilogy. Those three you can watch as three separate films from all the other Star Trek films, and they all follow on from each other. So you would have thought that to step away from that now and do a standalone story, they must have had literally dozens or hundreds of stories to choose from to tell us in regards to the Star Trek stories that are out there. And this one, for it to be chosen, I mean, I know William Shatner directed this. We all know he's got this reputation for having a huge ego, William Shatner, and he came up with this idea for this story, but it just doesn't work, unfortunately. It's a bit odd, bit daft. The effects are pretty poor, and it is easily, I think, the weakest Star Trek film, certainly with the original cast. Well, I'm going to go out there and say, especially as well as the Next Generation ones as well. I think it's worse than any that they put out there. But like I say, it's not a complete disaster. It does still have some nice moments in it, some really nice Star Trek moments. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's not a disaster. It's not unwatchable or anything. It's just when you had Star Trek 2, 3 and 4, and those were arguably really, really good films for the most part, to be delivered this film, you had to be disappointed with it. So that is my review of Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. I hope you liked it, I hope you found it useful, and of course I will be back for my next Star Trek review next time, and that will be Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. So thank you very much for watching, everybody.